What'd you get?
A 1, but I'm a halfling, so I'm gonna roll again.
Now?
Still terrible, but lucky feat?
Now?
Could be better, but I have Bardic Inspiration.
Now?
I really want to succeed on this one, so Dark One's own luck.
Now?
Oh, almost forgot. Bless spell.
No.
Well, I could use Portent, but from the look on your face, I think we should just discuss the Dice Master's Guide.
Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, you want to keep that D&D content rolling through your YouTube feed? Make sure you hit the subscribe button.
You won't need the lucky feat. You click that notification bell.
All right, before we dive into our discussion with dice manipulation and how to change your rolls after the fact, I'm going to take a moment to thank our sponsor, 1985 Games. They've got some awesome products. Matter of fact, I'm literally tired of hearing about them and seeing them because Ted uses them all the time.
Dungeon Craft is awesome. If you're concerned about space, for storing all of the great things that you want to use on your battlefield, then the two-dimensional images put out by Dungeon Craft are the perfect solution. I love putting out scatter. I love putting out things for my characters to interact with. I'm tired of my players saying, oh, is there a barrel to hide behind? Is there a tree I can climb? You know what? I want to put it out there. And Dungeon Craft is the perfect solution because I can have them, I've got them divided between, dungeon, city, forest, so that wherever my players are at, I can have that right there next to me. So that when I go to put out that battlefield, I can add some interactive things for the players to deal with.
It's so cool when Ted puts out the cityscapes and you have all the rooftops you can use, but then you enter the building and he flips it over and it has the interior of the building. It's great. It's easy to use. I was just joking about being tired of it. It is really great solution if you don't want to have a bunch of stuff all over the place. Maybe you're a DM on the go. This is so transportable. It's so easy to use. And they look fantastic.
You got to check them out. Link is going to be down in the description below.
All right, let's get into our dice manipulators and the ways we can do it. And we're going to break it down in categories. We're going to start off with race. Now, there's actually 2 ways to affect the die roll after the fact through your race.
And we already mentioned the halfling, and that re-rolling ones is super awesome. I've seen this come up so much in games that I've watched and games that I've played in, but that's not the only one. What else do we have?
We also have the Hobgoblin. They have saving face. So anytime they fail a check and they have an ally within 30 feet of them, for each ally, they get a +1 to a maximum of +5. They can use this once per rest, and it is going to be useful for attacks, saving throws, and ability checks.
So that's almost everything that you can, do with a D20. And, you got to admit, saving face, they care so much that, they can essentially push themselves beyond. I think that's pretty awesome.
And sometimes just the flat bonus is better than re-rolling, right? How many times have we seen it where you roll really bad and then roll worse with the second roll? But that bonus is enough to push you over it, and that's what you need. Folks, are you playing halflings? Do you play hobgoblins? Tell us your stories, the most climatic rerolls of ones, or possibly how that saving face came in clutch down in the comments.
All right, so next up we're going to look at classes, and doing the research, there is quite a lot of dice manipulation in all of the classes that we have access to.
Yes, we have 9 classes now that have the ability to affect the die roll after the fact. And we start right at Artificer, the newest of the classes. Artificer gets, at 7th level, Flash of Genius. Basically, what they can do as a reaction is add their intelligence modifier to a save or ability check, and they can do this once per rest.
Very useful. Next up, we have Bard, and we're all familiar with Bardic Inspiration. It's super helpful. You can give it out to the party, use it yourself. You've got the ability to have that die grow, depending upon what subclass you're in, determines exactly what it all applies to. So very useful.
You can use it for most roles, but it gets expanded use for both the Bard of Valor because you can do additional damage, or you can use Cutting Words where now you're affecting the die rolls of your opponents. All right, so next up we have Cleric, specifically the Ward Domain. They have 2 abilities from the Ward Domain. At 2nd level, it is through your Channel Divinity. You have Guided Strike, which is, hey, do you want to give someone a +10 to hit? That is a big deal. Or at 6th level, you have the ability to give someone else that bonus instead as a reaction, which is a big deal. And it is, your Channel Divinities, so you get to use them several times per short rest.
Moving into Fighter, the Battle Master has a number of maneuverability dice, and with those, you can use those maneuvers, and they're going to be very manipulative, whether you're talking about, bonuses to hit, whether you're talking about bonuses to damage, whether you're talking about bonuses to armor class. You can play around with a lot of different things. It's a really good way of, manipulating dice.
Also, several of those are less action dependent, where it's just part of your normal action. Oh, you take the attack action, use this ability to roll to increase your damage or increase your to hit.
There are, a couple of them that do use your reaction, but is usually incorporated with an attack, which oh, I'll wait till I hit to go ahead and use this one. Or, oh, I missed. Can I, spend a die to get a little bit more? So very useful.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to Bardic Inspiration, while it may cost a bonus action for the Bard to give it out or a reaction to use Cutting Words, but once it's given out, there's no action involved. So this is important when you want to stack, these abilities to manipulate the final result together.
Yeah, you have to look at all of the components, all of the pieces to find out how many things can I layer on top.
So next up we have the Monk, Drunken Master. It's a very high ability, 11th level. We added this one because it's kind of unique. There isn't a lot of things in the game that actually do this. And that's Drunkard's Luck. Spend 2 key points and you can negate disadvantage. Now, also, there's tons of ways to get advantage and disadvantage if we went through all the subclasses. And so we were kind of cherry picking a little bit and not really dealing with advantage and disadvantage a lot. But this is kind of interesting because I can't think of many things in the game that actually let you negate disadvantage aside from some of the UA things that just recently came out.
So next up, we're looking at Rogue. Specifically, we're looking at the Mastermind at 3rd level. They're going to get Master of Tactics, which is going to allow them to take the help action as a bonus action. So this is another one of those giving someone advantage. We're not mentioning all of them, but we thought this one was a pretty cool ability since you're doing it as a bonus action.
And not only that, you're affecting someone else on their one roll. So again, if a party's working together, you've got the Bard, you've got the Rogue, you can start stacking these things together. If you have an Artificer in the group as well, and it's a really clutch ability check or saving throw, these are going to all kind of come into play and be really helpful. All right, Sorcerer, we actually have 2 options. Divine Soul gets Favor to the Gods. They can add a 2d4 to their attacks and their saves, and they can use this once per rest.
That's pretty potent, especially because you could stack a Bless on top of that.
Yes, you could. We also have the Wild Mage Sorcerer, which they get Bend Luck at 6th level. It's only a die 4, and it's 2 sorcery points, but they can use that die 4 for themselves or an ally or against an opponent and minus it. So it's almost like a Bless or a Bane, depending how they want to use it, but there's a cost associated.
And we've seen that used quite a bit in your game with Ryan Sorcerer.
Absolutely.
So the Warlock has Dark One's Own Luck at 6th level if you go with the Fiend pack. And this is just adding a straight D10 to a roll. Super helpful, super useful in clutch situations when you really need to pass.
So I will say that Divine Soul Sorcerer, as well as the Warlock Fiend pack ability, they don't require actions, so that's also very important to note as well.
So then lastly, we're going to look at Wizard, and at 2nd level, if you go with Divination, they're going to get access to a Portent, and that's where you get the ability to roll, when you finish a long rest, roll a number of D20s and save those. And then you can use your reaction when someone else makes a roll to replace that that D20 roll with one that you've saved, because you've essentially seen this already. I think it's really fun, really great, and depending upon the rolls that you've got the ability to be like, oh, well, I rolled crappy. All right, well, that one's being saved for the DM. Oh, this one's really good. I've got a crit. Oh, when that rogue is set up in that perfect position with his weapon poisoned and he's going to get his assassination attack. All right, great. We're going to turn that into a crit. You've got these things that you can play around with, and I love that.
The Divination Wizard portent ability is awesome. You get to them, you get a third one at 14th level. Although, slight correction, I believe there is no action involved in using it. That is also really important when we're talking about stacking things together and how many different ways can we change and manipulate the dice.
You are correct. No reaction, no action economy on that. That just makes it better in my opinion. So I guess the question for you out there, what is your favorite way to manipulate the dice within 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons?
So 9 of our 13 classes actually had a way to do that, which is kind of cool. And now we're going to move into feats. And there's also a bunch of ways there.
We have 7 feats that are going to fall into the avenue of dice manipulation. First one, what do we have there, Dave?
We've got Bountiful Luck. That's a halfling specific feat. And basically, as a reaction, you can use your lucky ability for one of your allies. It's come up actually in your game a bunch. Ryan would use it a lot of times. It's super handy.
All right, so next one up is Elven Accuracy. So any die roll that's not going to be using Strength or Constitution that you would be rolling with advantage, you actually get to re-roll one of those dice, turning it into basically super advantage. Three dice. My players, love using this against me. It's like, oh, come on, 3 dice. Ah!
I mean, Constitution is the only score that you don't use to attack with ever, pretty much, and it eliminates Strength. But any of those other ones, you make an attack roll, boom, you get that super advantage. Comes in clutch. It's just another chance of trying to get that crit. Sweet, sweet crit.
So next up is Lucky. I'm certain you're familiar with this one. You get, so many rerolls per day or per long rest. Super helpful. Use them when you want. No action, a part of it. Just like, let's give it a go.
Next up, we have Martial Adept. Now, we talked about using those maneuvers. Once per rest, you get a superiority die to use. It's only a d6 unless you actually have another source for superiority dice. And you get 2 maneuvers. So you'll have some options for doing a little manipulation of that final die roll.
Depending upon what specific thing is that character is looking to do, you're going to obviously want to choose maneuvers that are fitting for the type of manipulation you're looking for.
Then we have Magic Initiate. There are several spells that let you manipulate the dice, and they are all low-level spells. Magic Initiate would give you access to them.
Savage Attacker, this is going to be really useful for your melee combatants because it's going to allow you to essentially roll a second set of dice or for your damage pool and just choose the better pair. Really helpful, really useful, but you have to be a melee fighter using strength.
It's also one of those unique mechanics where you're re-rolling dice in 5e D&D, and it's not a D20. That really doesn't happen very often. So finally, we have another halfling feat, Second Chance, and basically use a reaction. Once per rest, you can make someone else re-roll an attack roll, and they have to keep the second roll.
Really useful for, your...
If you just got critted.
Really useful if you just got critted or if your ally, rolled really poorly and you really want them to hit.
So down in the comments, let us know, is there a feat that you always take? I know a lot of people love the Lucky feat. It's come up in our games quite often. That's definitely a go-to. So now we're going to jump into spells. There's only 2 that I knew off the top of my head, and I didn't spend a ton of time researching this.
Well, there are a lot of spells out there. So as much as we love all of you out there who watch our videos, we just did not read through every single spell. So if you can think of a dice manipulator that we forgot to mention, please put it down in the comments.
Now, specifically, I was looking at spells too that add dice that you can increase the number with after the fact. I know there's definitely things like True Strike that will give you advantage. Foresight will give you advantage on a bunch of stuff. Like, there's tons of ways to get advantage.
We were looking for adding dice. So
yeah.
the 2 that we have selected, you have the Cantrip Guidance, which is going to give you a die 4 on any skill check roll. Really helpful, really useful. In my opinion, I think it's actually used often or way too often in certain games. And then Bless, super helpful. You know, it adds a D4 to attack roll or saving throw. You know, they're just great all around. They're never not useful.
Yeah, it always comes up clutch. Again, hey, which spells do you use? What spells are always in your game? Which ones did we miss? Let us know down below.
All right, so there are a lot of abilities that we went over. And while we're not suggesting that someone try to make a character who has done all of these things, we decided, you know what? How many of these abilities can we cram together? So we're like, all right, we got 20 levels to play with. What are we adding? So there's nothing better than a halfling. When you look at what the halfling gets and the halfling feats, you know, they were the top of the charts, no problem. Bard, 1 level to get access to that inspiration die. Cleric, 2 levels of Cleric is going to give us access to guidance, the bless spell, the war domain, so that we can get that guided strike. Where do we go from there?
You need 3 levels of fighter, and then that's going to give you access to those superiority dice and battle maneuvers. Again, if you go to Rogue Mastermind, for 3 levels, you can hand out those bonus action helps as if they were candy.
1 level of Divine Soul Sorcerer is going to give you access to Favor of the Gods. And, you know, that Dark One's own luck is super helpful. So we're actually going to take 6 levels of Warlock for that.
Then you have 2 where you can just play with and do whatever you want. Most likely those 3rd levels, you would take them up to 4th just so you can get those feats. So then you would probably, you know, take Lucky or, you know, any of the other ones that are going to help.
Lucky and Bountiful Luck.
Both of those would work quite well. So you have a ton of ways where you can manipulate the dice. And not only that, we tried to do it in a way of put together this list of you could literally do them all at the same time if you wanted to.
Yeah. So this is a crazy, ridiculous build. This is something that you could put this character, while he's not super powerful with all of their abilities, you know, they have just got, you know, a massive amount of, you know, luck on their side because they're always mucking with fate or what have you. Maybe this is a character that's an NPC or a villain in your world who's stealing luck. You could do so much with, you know, someone that is like this. So do you enjoy our theory crafting videos? Then why don't you check out the unkillable character in the card right here.
In addition to joining the discussion below down in the comments, you can always do it live in our weekly patron-only hangouts.
But that's not all. Over on Patreon, we are creating 5th edition products for DMs and players alike. Join that there and get access to our monthly giveaways that our patrons are automatically entered into.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.